Welcome to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle, where professionals in the field inform, educate and inspire the community to be healthier, more balanced and live the lifestyle they love. Today's guest is Heather Belle Murphy, a health, life and love coach, and our topic is what I learned from love. Welcome to the show, Heather, and tell me, what did you learn from love?
Lots of great stuff, Kirsty. I've been in loving relationships for a long time now, including some pretty significant ones. My biggest skill that I've learned, that I think I can say that I've learned, over my past sort of 35 years of actual adulthood, is emotional balance. What I see with clients, and I've actually come from an experience of being somebody who was highly oversensitive at one stage, suffered with, anxiety, depression, those sorts of things. And being emotionally balanced no longer means that I'm on that seesaw emotional roller coaster of being, when I'm up, and everything's great. When I'm down, I'm down. And when I'm down, I would need to do something to get up, to escape that uncomfortable, bumpy feeling. So, for women, that commonly looks like doing things like eating the wrong things, overconsumption of food, having unhealthy relationships with things like TV or alcohol, or even just developing unhealthy relationships with things like, with I shouldn't say things, but, with, say, their children, for example, where they're just overly living out a life through someone else. So that sense of being in our beingness and being in balance is a really important thing. The other really important thing is whether we're in a relationship, intimate other, with the person of the opposite sex, or even an intimate relationship with same sex, and even if that is with a sister or another relative, say, for example, someone is most likely to carry the masculine energy in the relationship, and someone is most likely to carry the feminine energy in the relationship. Now, the issue with that is that, especially if it comes to being in a relationship with your significant other, men are going to feel much more comfortable expressing their feelings, or another great expression for it is crashing the boat of their heart on your island and wanting to stay with you if you're really emotionally comfortable. Particularly if you're emotionally comfortable, during bumpy, potentially volatile times. So that's a really important thing.
Could you please explain a little more about masculine and feminine energy for us?
I'd love to, especially as we know that there's a lot of gender and role confusion going on in society at the moment. So clients commonly come to me, and there can be a confusion in their relationship, especially where some girls now may be in a situation where or some women may be in a situation where they're earning more than their partner. Or you might have a same-sex couple where one person is, significantly, obviously, the breadwinner in the household. What I'm finding in relationships now, sometimes in same-sex couples, generally with women, or in heterosexual couples, it's like two people are both trying to wear the pants in the one household, and that doesn't work. So being the masculine, sometimes people mistake carrying the masculine energy in the relationship as being controlling or dominating, and that's not actually where it's at. It's actually more of a protective role. You'll often get one person is more of the protector. Now, in my relationship, it is definitely my partner. He fits that male protector, breadwinner figure particularly well, and I'm definitely much more the nurturer. He's nurturing as well, but of course it's part of that dance that we do. He nurtures me in other ways, but I tend to definitely be the feminine energy, the nurturing, the receiver. I'm definitely the feminine receptor in the relationship.
And have you got any tips for our viewers?
Absolutely. Emotional balance is essential. I call it emotional landscaping with clients and emotional processing. And you know, we're very, very lucky that as women, being in touch with lunar cycle, because we're 60% water, it's a great time to follow the phases of the moon, being in dark moon or being in full moon, when we know that it's time to, so cleaning the house and cleaning out the shoe cupboard and being organised at that time, it's a great time to utilise that energy doing those kinds of things. And then being in full moon, that's more of a doing time. So that's the time when you can, you know, a great time to be more into exercising or to be into making changes and fulfilling change, whether that is changing your direction in your career and having a plan around that, or changing, you know, your eating regimen, for example, upscaling it or whatever, you know, or you know, you might change your physical regimen. How am I going to exercise? How is that going to change? So full moon is a great time, more of a doing energy, compared to dark moon is much more of a time for planning, cleansing.
Well, thank you so much, Heather. That was wonderful. If anyone wants any more information on Heather Belle Murphy or on what she learnt from love, please look up her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. Stay with us. We'll be back after the break with another fantastic guest and a very interesting story. Stay tuned. After the break, animal communicator and therapist Caroline Pope talks animal communication and breaking down the barriers. Welcome back. Now we have Caroline Pope in the studio, and she is an animal communicator and therapist, and we're going to be discussing animal communication, overcoming barriers. Hi Caroline, welcome.
Hey.
Now I wanted to ask, are different human languages a barrier to animal communication? So if you were working on communicating with an animal that wasn't from an English-speaking country, how does that affect things?
Only from the point of view, I sadly only have English. I don't speak a second language. Providing the person on the other end can also speak English as a second language, it's not an issue, because the animal doesn't speak a language per se. They use telepathics. So telepathics doesn't have a language. The biggest problem I actually find with my international people is simply some of the accents I can struggle a little bit to understand, and apparently I have a very broad Aussie accent and very few can understand me. That seems to be the biggest barrier.
So it's a human issue, not an animal issue.
It's a human issue, not an animal issue.
How does it work? How do you communicate with animals?
For those of you that have seen The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, great trilogy, think of the babblefish. For those that haven't, the babblefish was something that you put in your ear and it'd swim around and it would simultaneously translate any language right throughout the universe. And essentially that's what happens, because it's all about thought. If you're, say, a diplomat and you want to say something to someone who only speaks Russian and someone who only speaks Dutch, the thought pattern's the same. What you want to say might be the same, but the languages are different. So the animal's thought pattern, to me, is always going to be the same. It just happens that I only speak English, therefore I need another English-speaking person on the other end of the phone. The animal doesn't have a language per se. It's all telepathics, it's all energetic thought.
How does the difference between species affect animal communication?
Hugely. That's the biggest job of any animal communicator, is advocating for species difference. You're not going to roll in horse poo and eat it, at least I'm assuming you're not. Your dog will. Dog's not going to jump on Google and Google animal communication. One of my cats once said to me, murdering birdies is good for my stress levels. You should try it sometime. Murdering birdies wasn't going to do anything for my stress levels. Drinking coffee wasn't going to do anything for the cat. And everything is within species. You can't blame a dog for being a dog any more than if a horse gets a fright, it's going to shy or bolt, because that's what horses do. And the biggest problem is people that consider themselves animal communicators that have no species awareness. I remember one lady, and look, she was a human psychologist, she was very good, but she'd been speaking to these people with this very, very troubled dog. And they told me what they were doing, and I just went, no, that's crap. You actually do the complete opposite. And within 5 minutes, that dog was lying down. It hadn't laid down for 3 weeks, because the signals they were giving to the dog was actually upsetting the dog. When you understand the species, you understand how to change your signals, because any animal's like a computer. They can only go by the information you're giving. And you're giving any animal information 24/7, 365. The problem is we're not aware of the information we're giving, because we can only see things from our species parameters. My computer guy puts it really well. He says it's like giving Mac commands to a Windows computer and going, why isn't this working? They're two different operating systems. A cat and a dog and a human have 3 different operating systems, and then add that to every species.
So could you please give our viewers some advice on communicating with their animals? Are there any general things to look out for?
Start with someone else's, because you're too close to your own. In the same way, doctors doesn't treat their own children, or a clairvoyant doesn't generally read. You need to know you're able to communicate, and you know your own too well. You can't detach what is you from what is them. And also you need feedback. You need to know whether you're on the right trail. I mean, having said that, sometimes you'll get something that's just so weird you couldn't possibly have thought it up, and that's when you know it's coming from the animal. But most of the time, practice on others and get others to practice on yours, and start with it that way. Because it's like, a kid's not often going to tell his mum what's going on, but he'll tell a third party. It's exactly the same. So work with that to start with and build up the relationship and the rapport from there.
When you say practice, like what sort of things would you do, say, with a friend's dog? What would you observe?
They might, for example, say, all right, here's a list of 4 questions. See what answers you get. And that's a good one for you. But they need to be answers that the owners know. For example, dogs in shelters. Any dog in a shelter will tell you anything it needs to get out of there rather than being euthanized. But also people like to get stuck in the past and, it's because he was a shelter dog till he was 6 months old. Well, yeah, you've had him 12 years and he's still a brat. What's your excuse? People like to keep their animals in victim mode, but they can't know what's gone on. So there's no point in asking what happened while you're in the shelter, or how many homes or whatever have you had before, when you're starting to learn, if the owner can't validate that, because they need to be questions that the owner 100% knows.
So that's you asking in English the dog a question.
Yeah, you might give me a list of 4 questions, and it might be, what does Fido like to eat? Where does he like to go? Some of his favourite activities. And then I'll take a photo and tune in, write down the answers and give them to you. And you can go, those 2 are right. No idea why you said that. I'll try feeding it to him, see whether he likes it or not, and get back to you. Because you need to know you're on the right path. And it's like a muscle. You don't use it, you lose it. But start with little bits, because you don't go out and run a marathon. As Tuvok used to say, you don't get out of a wheelchair and do advanced aerobics. You don't run a marathon to start with. Little bits and build up. And that's the thing. If I said to you, we're going to learn ancient Egyptian or Latin, no one's going to expect to be fluent in a day, and using the Egyptian, go in and read Tut's tomb. And yet everybody expects to be able to communicate fluently and instantaneously within a day. And sadly, for 99.99% of the population, it takes work. But the rewards are always worth it.
Well, that is fascinating. Thank you so much, Caroline.
You're very welcome.
If you want to know more about Caroline Pope and language and communication with animals, please go to her webpage on our website at healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au, and we'll be right back after this break with another amazing guest.
Stay tuned. After the break, naturopath, lecturer and author Michèle Wolff will be talking about, are bloating and irritable bowel syndrome curable? Welcome back. Our next guest, Michèle Wolff, is a naturopath, author and lecturer, and the topic we'll be discussing is how food affects our digestive and nervous systems. Welcome, Michèle.
Thank you, Megan.
So how does food affect our digestive system?
Food can have a big impact on our digestion because it's going straight into our digestive system. And you've got several organs of your digestive system. So your liver puts bile into the gallbladder, which squirts into your digestive system, and that digests fats. Your pancreas controls insulin, which when it's responsible for when you eat sugars or sweet things, and it also produces digestive enzymes which digest protein, fat and carbohydrates. And you've also got hydrochloric acid in your stomach that breaks down food, particularly protein. So when you eat food, it can impact that and put more strain on that, and it can also impact the way that your bowel moves, which is called peristalsis. So for example, if you eat too much sugar, you'll put a lot of pressure on your pancreas with the insulin production. So if that goes on and you have too much sugar, you can be at risk for diabetes, for example. And then also if you have too much sugar, that becomes a breeding ground for pathology. So you can get an overgrowth of abnormal bacteria like fungus and parasites. So eating can really affect your mood. More junk foods, white flours, sugars, unhealthy drinks, so too much alcohol, too much soft drink, too much caffeine, can have a negative effect on your gut and on your brain. And then if you're overloading your digestive system with any food, that can cause a problem as well. So for example, if you overeat meat and you're not having vegetables with the meat and you're eating that late at night, your stomach can't handle it. So it takes a lot to produce enough hydrochloric acid to break down that meat into a soup. And you want to have really good amounts of plant food to create that nice microbe, like having healthy soil, to produce a really healthy intestine. And you want to be having food that has the right amount of nutrients to give you energy and to help your nervous system and to help your mood. So when you've broken that food down in your stomach, your small intestine, which is 22 feet that goes from the stomach, that absorbs all your good nutrients. So you want to have plenty of nutrients for energy and for relaxation and to feed all your other organs, and for your diet to be more anti-inflammatory rather than pro-inflammatory. Having more of a Mediterranean diet with lots of legumes, lots of green leafy vegetables, good oils like olive oils, nuts and seeds, they have a really positive effect. And having a variety. So if you have 40 different plant foods a week, that feeds your whole microbiome. Now that can seem overwhelming, but if you have a curry, say, with 7 spices, those spices count as plant food. So you could have as a base onion, garlic, a turmeric, cumin, and some Italian herbs, and you've got quite a range already. So it's increasing the diversity of plant foods and avoiding unhealthy drinks and unhealthy foods, particularly junk foods, particularly sugars, and keeping carbohydrates quite low as well. So carbohydrates should only be a quarter of your diet, not half of your diet.
How does food actually affect our nervous system?
So food affects your nervous system in a couple of ways. Firstly, by the nutrients it contains. So your nervous system needs a lot of magnesium, a lot of calcium, a lot of potassium, a lot of B vitamins in order to operate effectively. And the adrenal glands, which are part of your nervous system that are responsible for the flight and fright, they use up a lot of vitamin C. So you need to feed and nourish them with those good nutrients and good complex carbohydrates, which give you energy without overdoing the carbohydrates. And the things that negatively impact the nervous system are your cakes and your biscuits and your fast foods. And you know, if you're healthy, the 80-20 rule is okay. If 80% of the time your diet is good and you're creating that really healthy microbiome, you're absorbing really good nutrients, then 20% of the time, you know, you can have your treats. It just depends on where you are. If you've got a serious disease, then you have to be stricter for longer. And if you have some sort of pathology, that will have an effect on your nervous system in making you more irritable or more angry. And so starving that out by not having carbohydrates and sugars will help your mood. And then you've got foods that really help to relax you. So a glass of warm milk with a spice, say some warm milk with cardamom, or if you can't tolerate milk, then hot coconut milk or almond milk is very, very soothing, relaxing, and can help you sleep better, which is part of your nervous system as well. And then you've got foods that spice the nervous system up a bit. So a little bit of dark chocolate has something called theothrombin in it, which is a little bit like caffeine, so that will make you very alert. But if you overdo the dark chocolate, you'll get anxiety and you'll be too hyperactive. So that's part of your nervous system as well. So it's just having that balance of not having things that make you too hyperactive and anxious, and not having things that make you depressed and sluggish, and keeping that middle balance with a good Mediterranean diet and anti-inflammatory foods and spices.
Do you have any special tips for our viewers?
So if you're having junk foods, move to a more healthy junk food. So for example, takeaways, sushi takeaway would be much more healthy than a pizza. So just have a look around at what you can do. If you have really busy days, on the days that you're not busy, get some glass containers and freeze lots of meals so that you can pull them out on days that you're busy, and then you'll have less junk food. Avoid having things in the house that are unhealthy. So you know, you don't have to have chocolates and biscuits and cakes in the house unless you're having a particular visitor that day, but it's not healthy for your family either. And instead have an abundance of fruit and vegetables in your pantry and in your fridge and on your kitchen bench, so that they are healthy snacks. Nuts and seeds are healthy snacks as well.
That's such good information, Michèle. Thank you. If you'd like to know more about how food affects our digestive system and our nervous system and Michèle Wolff, please go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And we'll say bye-bye for now, and we'll see you next time.
If you'd like to know more about our show, please like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel.